Hey everyone, welcome to Pritchard Pub. Don't forget to like, sub to the pub, and click the bell for notifications. I always forget that one.
Yeah.
This is, you know him.
Yeah.
So more importantly, this is our first show with a female, and it's none other than Lady R.H. Snow, the
Royalty.
queen of the Iron Age.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah.
I am so excited. I've never done the show before. I've seen so much of it, and I love you guys so much. And I just want to say I'm so excited to be here. I'm trying to put my V on right because my V is actually a vintage pen, and it keeps wanting to turn the wrong way. And since you put a V on my thing where you said it was the queen bee, I'm like, I need to wear my V tonight. It's a three-legged V. It lost in the washer, so I was like, I have to wear my V tonight, so it'll make me good luck. I love you. How are you doing?
We love you too. Good. We are pretty good. I was really excited that they did the ladies' night on Royce's show, and that was when we were originally going to do this because they usually don't stream on Thursdays.
Yeah, I know.
And then so we decided to move the show because we couldn't have our first show with a female when they were doing that. Like we just.
Oh, I absolutely know. I know that feeling because they're like, oh my gosh, it's like, yeah. So I'm double heading tonight because I was also supposed to be on Nick's stream over at Phoenix Press, and so I will be doing that after this. I'll be jumping midstream to go play Fall at New Vegas. But I love the Pritchard so much, and I'm like, I have to be on Pritchard's Pub tonight because I love them. They're like my children, and so
yes.
You know, we actually, since we're doing a shorter show tonight, that works because we haven't done a Watchworthy in a long time, and we're going to do one of those tonight, so it works so well for us.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to do?
Watchworthy.
Just I don't know if we're going to have a guest. We'll see. Like Kahuna will jump in sometimes. Mm-hmm. We had Bat Sauce and his wife Caroline once.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And so just, you know, I don't know, but I want to watch yours on. I'm pretty sure I follow Phoenix Press, don't I? I have to check that now.
Phoenix Press is a cool guy and a good resource. Are you part of his Discord?
You, me, yes.
Yes.
Actually, I get most of his stuff on X. I am so, oh my gosh. Okay, so this is how you know I'm old because so I have Discords and I do not have a personal Discord because I know you have to keep posting porn or something like that. And so I was like, I do not have time to do a Discord. And then I have Gilded. And then I do not have Reddit right now because Reddit evidently is a portal to hell. I'm not sure. I love you if you're on Reddit. Okay.
Is that a thing?
I
love it.
Back in the day, so But I don't actually have a server of my own for Watch of the Damned. I just have a bunch of stuff. So I have everybody's Gilded, everybody's Discord. So I try to sort of all pull it together on X right now because X is kind of where I'm able to get through the fastest. It's all sort of on one place. But I do have some folks that are on X, and so I try to do the Discords whenever possible, but it's really hard because there's so many different platforms right now, and it's like it's hard to choose which one to go to. And so with everybody being everywhere, I have a tough time, so I usually just end up going back to X, which makes it a little easier. So
I feel like I frequent that too, and he's on like Discord and all that a lot, which I'm rarely on there.
Oh really?
Yeah. I don't know why.
Gilded's fun. I like Gilded. It's like a less restricted Discord.
Yeah, it's actually it's a little more free. I don't feel as likely that somebody's just going to go, oh, I don't like what you wrote on Discord. I'm more likely to be able to say, and it's not that I'm saying anything bad, but it's gotten to the point now where if you post anything that's considered, like for instance, if I post a picture of one of my characters and they have a gun, and somebody goes, oh, violent. I mean, it's even a cartoon gun. It's not a real gun. But and I've had that happen before with some of my other merch where I was trying to maybe do a little merch, and I'm like, oh, I want to do the cover for a Hellraisers and Heartbreakers. 2 women on it. Well, they had guns, and of course they're one of them's the female villain, one of them's a female protagonist, and so I had guns on them. And immediately, and I won't say the vendor, immediately the vendor said, this is a banned image. Now, the funny part is I did Six Gun Diva, which has the 2 male protagonists on it, both of them with guns and with like a heat ray. And nobody ever said Jack Diddley squat about that. But as soon as I put the female and she had a black AK-47, and and I was like, holy cow, that's a race.
This is what I say to them.
There you go. Thank you very much. Yes, because it was just like because it's a beautiful image, and they were saying, "Oh, you can't use this because it's got a gun." I was like, "It's women with guns. It's empowering. It's
it is
female. You know,
the equalizer."
We had just had that discussion on X the other day on Twix, as I like to call it, because I'm still calling it Twitter in my head, and on Twix about women in self-defense and strong female characters. And I was raised by my dad. Was an Army Ranger instructor. He was actually an armed combat instructor. And so he was in there for, during the Korean War. And I was like, okay, I want to learn how to defend myself. And Dad took one look at me and he's like, dude, yeah, you're going to need it. Because I'm just like a 4'11". I'm like this little midget person. And so he was trying to teach me how to do it. And I literally freeze every time something horrible starts to happen. If I get really mad, I just go limp. I don't really do anything. I'm like one of my characters in my book. I did Mary Sue the heck out of that because I've never read about a character that really thinks they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And then as soon as something happens, she just goes down. It's like that. and so my dad kept trying to teach me ways to defend myself. And he was one of the first ones to say, the gun is your greatest equalizer. You will never equal. Yeah. And this is not me being unfair. I'm not going to ever equal a 6'6", 300-pound man. I'm not going to equal him on the battlefield in unarmed combat.
Neither will I. Neither will I as a dude.
That's right. I can bait him. I can know what my limitations are. I can probably do a couple of inside moves. And there's a few tricks that my dad taught me that are fatality moves that can be done, but only by surprise. And if I just do it halfway and make this guy mad, he said, he's going to kill you. And so I said, you have to either finish the job, and the only way you're going to finish the job, he said, he didn't want to teach me knife fighting because he knew I wouldn't follow through with it. He said, use the gun. Yeah. And so a gun is a great equalizer. It is the best way for women and for people who have physical limitations or who have physical challenges to have self-defense that is effective. And if you are ethical and you only use it in self-defense of your life or another person's life, then you are doing the right thing because that is part of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes. If I can't defend my life, then I don't have a right to my life. And I don't have to ask the government's permission for me to defend myself. I do have to follow laws, and I have to respect someone else's right to life as well. If I'm not an ethical person, then I should be able to defend myself. And the fastest, best way for me to do it is with a gun. Because when you're 4'11", you can learn a lot of really cool things. But you're probably not going to take down a dude if he's really wanting to get to you. Anybody. They're gonna find a way, especially if they're mad or high.
And a knife is you have to be too close, and it's too. Yeah. I mean that's rough.
That's
to
gritty.
Be jamming a knife into someone and
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, well, Saving Private Ryan. There's some excellent videos online, and knives. Now, knives are a tool. They're like anything else, and they can be used. And my father did teach me a little bit about knife fighting, but he, as he said, he was watching me, and he knew me well enough. Everybody has their own fighting style. And you have to be very intimately aware of what you are capable of doing and how far you are willing to go. And you want to know because the slightest hesitation is going to get you killed, and perhaps in a very horrible way. It may not be fast. So you want to make sure that you are fully committed and that you are doing it for the right reasons. If you have your children with you, you have a good reason. I will fight for my children in a way that I would never fight for myself. I will literally go up to somebody and try to defuse the situation. That's who I am. I will walk right up in the middle of the biggest fight, and I will actually put my hands on people, just touching them, saying, let's calm down, let's love each other. And sometimes they do. If my little children, if my babies were next to me, I would draw down in a heartbeat on somebody because I will defend that child with my life, and I will make sure that the other person defends it with their life too. And what that means is that we have to be prepared for that. So knife fighting is something that you can study, and there are particular techniques that can be used. There's a way to hold a knife where you do it loosely and you do it effectively, and you do it very quickly. You don't spend a lot of time being flashy. You spend a lot of time thinking about how am I doing this and what are the reasons I'm doing this? Am I here to disable an opponent? Am I here to try to run away? And if I am, then that's what I go after, and you do it quickly and you move on. But you have to be very committed with a knife. And so the gun is the equalizer primarily because it is made for a person with a tiny hand can use it. I have these little possum paws. I don't know if you know, it's like these are itty hands. And I literally, it's hard for me, even with a Kel-Tec, if it's got they have a small Kel-Tec, it's like a 22 and a 9. And so the grip on it, because of the way the grip is, I've got this little short finger. My grip doesn't come far enough over to actually squeeze the trigger and still seat the entire gun in my hands. So I prefer to have a revolver, and I use that J grip. Yeah, and I'm very happy I have a small revolver. It's a Taurus, and it's a 38.
He's got a Taurus too.
Taurus.
Yeah, 38 special, and so far I've been very pleased with it. I know there are a lot of people that love that, and there are so many different models of guns and so many different makers. There's Smith and Wesson and Remington and all the others. This Taurus has just been exactly what I needed. It was the right size. It's for what I use, which is for self-defense and close situation. It's the perfect firearm. And so I've been pretty happy with that so far. And I try to stay up with my training and things like that, because I know that training is everything. When you're going into a self-defense situation, you say, how are you going to do it? Make sure that you have your training done, and make sure you go to the range when you can. And I say that, and I know I need to arrange a range day now, because I just said that, which means I'll be a hypocrite if I don't.
Yeah. So I have
We've got plenty of ammo for it. So
I have a few thoughts on the gun stuff. So like the founding fathers did kind of hand us a bunch of guns and say, hey, if we fuck up, do something about it.
That's right.
They did kind of do that, and they wrote it into our doctrine. I believe also historically, I can't remember if it was France or Britain. One of these places, I can't remember specifically, so don't butcher me in the comments, but one of these places outlawed crossbows, because it's like when you have an entire culture that's founded on who has the bigger, stronger, better funded knight and more of them walking around, they're kind of these impenetrable supermen that essentially tanks. Knights are like tanks. And then if you have something like a crossbow that gets invented, a child can take down a knight. That's like years of training gone from like a 6-year-old just pulling the trigger, So I believe one of these places outlawed that, which I think is a fascinating thing. It's basically the same idea as a gun. It's an equalizer. Of course they don't want their knights nullified. Of course they don't.
When you ask the question, as we say, an armed society is a polite society. And so if the knight's equally armed and he goes, you mess up and I'm going to take you out too, then everybody starts to have a mutual agreement. I'm not going to pull on you and you're not going to pull on me. We're all going to work together. We're going to be friends somehow. And we're going to know what it is we're fighting for and why we're doing it. And so that actually requires you to think about what are the ethics of what you're doing and how does it affect the community around you. If you're out there, just running wild and shooting up stuff, chances are somebody might shoot back. So you have there's an agreement there. There's a general agreement. You won't shoot up people and they won't shoot you. And that requires, of course, law and order, because what happens when somebody does break the rules? And then you have to have the ability to know, well, this law says that I can do this thing. So studying what you're working on, the fact that you're carrying, whether you're carrying for a permitless society or you're carrying concealed carry, you should always go in and study those things. There are plenty of things online. Donut Operator is one of them I love to watch, because he goes over those intricacies of what it means to be well trained and to be a person who is able to defend oneself correctly with a firearm. I enjoy that. Darren Thumb, who goes over the intricacies of all kinds of firearms and equipment. And or Hickok 45, love him. Just a great guy. And so I think that any of those, that if you go up, there's such a wealth of information out there that nobody should be an uninformed firearms enthusiast. You should always be well informed, be well trained, and prepare to defend yourself or another person's life, but never take it for granted. Never just casually whip it out. And I definitely have this rule that we don't drink and pack at the same time. If you're packing heat, you probably should take it off if you're going to go down one, just because it's a good idea. And if you don't feel safe where you're drinking, you feel like you have to have a firearm, then you probably shouldn't be drinking there.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's
a really good point.
If you feel like you got to pack heat to go in there and drink, you probably shouldn't be drinking there in the first place, because it might not be effective. Have yourself a nice soda or something, like that, and just stand in the corner and take that hunter's position right there at the end of the bar.
Play the bouncer,
So Andy and I both have our permits to carry. We allow open carry in Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yay.
And I tell people that because I've come across it all the time where people say they're not necessarily against guns, but guns scare them. And I tell them the best thing you can do for yourself then is get familiar with them. I'll take you to the range. I'll teach you.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people that I don't think I've ever met someone that knew anything about guns that wasn't more than willing to share that information with someone. And, you know, and then they say, well, you know, I'm afraid to go to a range. And I'm like, you know, if you walk into a range and there's a bunch of people you don't know with guns, your senses should be heightened. And anytime you're carrying a gun, you need to be aware of your surroundings and be vigilant like that. Mm-hmm. That's totally normal to feel that way. And it's not like a fear, you know, once you know what you're doing, you're going to be comfortable, but you should still, you know, be alert.
It's like carrying a sword on your hip in like Roman times.
Oh, when I was carrying one time, so I had it on my hip and in the holster, and I was at a gas station, and this guy was, I don't know, in like a kind of a business type suit, like he worked in an office, and he like looked at me, and he was behind me in line, so someone was in front of me, and I was behind them, he was behind me, and he's like, really? And then it was right as I was walking up to the cashier, and she looked at him and looked at me, and she's like, I don't blame you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And my final thought on the equalizer thing is funny enough about this even being brought up. Fallout actually has a town in the world. I mean, I'm sure it has like many towns, but like canonically in one of the games, I think it's Fallout 3. It's called Little Lamplight. It's nothing but children. Yes. And I believe when you ask the leader, aren't you guys scared? Like, essentially the idea is guns.
Yes.
Like, you can be a good marksman and be a kid at the same time.
My dad taught me to fight, to use firearms at a very young age. I taught my children at the age of 3 and 4, took them with me to shoot something, and I shot at watermelon, and it will absolutely blow up. And I said, this is what this does. This is not a toy. Now the other thing,
good idea.
And I know this makes it sound strange, but my children, when they played with toy firearms, the toys always had colors. And I said, I never had a gun that had any type of bright colors or anything. I know they're a lot of fun, but I had kids. I said, a toy gun should look like a toy. It should never look like a real firearm. And when I was a kid, I played ones that look real, because we have a tendency nowadays where a kid can be considered a threat. Somebody could shoot them, say, oh, I thought he had a gun. So I've always had, my kids never had a real looking. It was always looked like a toy when they were playing with it. And I introduced them early to real firearms. When I taught school, I brought boards to class, and I said, this is what a gun does to a board. This is what it does. And we all had guns in the house at the time, because it was 30 years ago when I first started teaching. And I was like, dude, if you're going to use a gun, you're using it for a reason. It is a tool. And if you see a gun and it's out where you don't want it to be, you need to go tell your mom and dad right away, I see a gun. That way they know it's, you don't touch it. Don't pick it up. You don't take it to them. You go and get them, and you tell your parents, I see a gun. So that way they'll know if it's theirs or if it's yours. And that way they will put it away and put it in a safe place. Because a lot of times when we have those accidents, it's when you're at a party, somebody else divests themselves. And that's always a very dangerous situation. But children can be taught gun safety, and they should be taught gun safety. Keeping them in the dark and ignorant is an absolutely terrible way to live. That is how people end up capping themselves on air, as we had unfortunately happened to a young man. Yeah. And that was a very tragic situation. A gun is not a toy. It is a tool. You wouldn't pick up a circular saw and put it to your head, and you shouldn't do anything like that with a gun. They're both equally dangerous. They can both kill. It's what you do with them that makes the difference. So don't play with tools. You're not supposed to. They're not toys. And that includes guns or saws or anything else that can cause damage.
What did you say? The watermelon thing, by the way, is a really good idea. Instead of just like pop cans or something, show the damage. Mm-hmm. But what did you say? You said that toy guns should always be a bright color. And then what did you say?
Yes, toy guns should always be a bright color. And even then, we were taught not to actually aim them at each other. This is, but I'm a kid. Yeah. My dad was a better. And we could play with the guns. We'd aim them at other things. But he had deliberately taught us to never aim even a toy gun at another person. So
Yeah.
we would always lose when you're playing like, Cowboys and Indians or good guy, bad guy, cops and robbers. I would always lose because we couldn't aim. I would just be like shooting up in the air. But he was so serious because he was a veteran and he had seen accidents. He was like, you never aim. It became so ingrained that even now, if I'm going to pull a gun and point it at someone, it's because there's a threat to life and there's no playing with it. Now, when I was when I worked with my kids as we were first learning video games, when I did video games with them, we did Halo or we did Descent. Fallout was the first game I ever played where I was actually shooting at other humans. And because it was so ingrained in me. By that point, I'm an adult and I could see where this actually starts to blur the line. So with my kids, I was like, okay, this is a video game and this is we're playing. And I actually didn't use the gun. Yeah. You can get the controllers that have the gun on, like we did for Nintendo with the dog.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
those are awesome.
You still couldn't shoot him. And so I always had the gun this way. So you can do it this way, and but there's something different about holding a controller in your hand and you're pointing it. You're training yourself. Now, for training, it's great. And I like iTarget for that reason. I have one. And I love iTarget. They've got the little cube now, and you can actually pew, 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 and you can train with an actual firearm. With that firearm, I always make sure it's marked. I make sure that it has a big bright red dot on it or something that clearly marks it. And that gun is only used for iTarget. It is not used. The beams do not cross. It goes back in the box. It is considered to be a training weapon. It is only a training weapon with a bright color on it. If you start mixing your training weapons with your actual duty weapons, you're going to end up in trouble. And it's better to go ahead and I know it takes one of your guns off the table, but use your training weapon as one that you're going to have, especially if you're doing dry fire training. So I use that with my iTarget, and that is the only time that I will actually take a gun and use it, and it's a real gun, and it has that on there, but it's very clearly marked. And it's also with a backstop, and it's also in an area of the house where I know that it's never going to hurt somebody. And I still, to this day, anytime I take a firearm in my hand, I open up the chamber to see what's in it, and I make sure that magazine is dropped so I know that there's nothing there, because you can drop that mag and you cycle one in, and you're in trouble if you accidentally fire it off. So you make sure you open up that chamber, make sure that it's empty. That happens every time. You do it when you take it up. You do it when you put it down. You always consider a firearm to be a dangerous thing, and it is not a toy. Training is serious. It can be fun, but it's serious. Yep. And when we teach the proper firearm safety, I have 100 years of having guns in my home around children. Now, they're not allowed to have them, and they're usually locked. Anytime they're up, even if they're on the wall, they're in a place where they'll be locked up. But children can see them. Children know this is there for mommy if I have to defend their life. And they know what it's for. And they can't access it unless I give them the proper training, and they're going to be of an age to use one. But that has kept my family safe. And I say that honest to God, yes, at any point, somebody can just decide, you know what? I'm going to go become the villain today. If that's the case, if somebody enters my home and they become the villain today, then I'm going to take them down as fast as I can and as hard as I can, because that's my family and I'm going to defend them. But in 100 years, I have not had an accidental firing. I've not had a person that was killed accidentally, because we started firearm safety early and we recognized the danger. And we also recognized the duty that we have to defend each other.
When I was pregnant, his coworker was over and he has the same gun that I have, which I'm going to show you just because you said something about the bright colors.
Yeah.
This is it.
Oh, I love that color. That's so pretty.
It's beautiful. It's my FMK. So he handed it to me, and I know that gun doesn't have a safety. So the first thing I dropped it and pulled it back, and a fucking round flew out. And I'm like, really, dude? You just handed me a loaded gun without saying a word, huh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What did we say? We always say that any gun is a loaded gun.
Exactly.
Gun
so I wasn't mad because I did what I was supposed to do. I was like,
good job. No, I'm so proud of you for doing that. That is such a huge. We've had actually, and I will tell this story because it's part of what shapes me as a person. And people are always like, oh, people who love guns, they've never seen the damage they do, or they don't know, or they're all compensating. No, we live around them. They're tools. We use them. And when I was a child, one of the things that my parents had taught me early was never consider it a toy. but they were having a school play in the small town where I lived, and it was a high school. And so the high school play, they were using an actual firearm in the play where there was supposed to be a scene where somebody got shot. And for whatever reason that morning, somebody had put a live fire round into the gun, and it pulled it, and it nearly killed the girl. And I never got over that. And she did live. We actually had, this is so long ago that we actually had people going in to give blood direct. It was in a tiny town, about 500 people. They had to, drive her all the way down, but she went to the local hospital, and they were trying to give blood as fast as they could. And they did save her life, but it was because they didn't check that chamber. They thought that it was where they left it. Somebody evidently had gone out to check the animals that night, and they put a round in it because they were going to go check somebody, and it was loaded. Yeah. They didn't check. No matter what it is, I don't care if it's a toy weapon, pick it up, open it up, see if it's empty or not. Never assume that those things are empty. And so it makes a difference when you have that experience in your life where you know where somebody's made a mistake, and it can happen to anybody. Yeah. So when you consider this thing, that I am in the presence of something that deals death, you will treat it with respect. But the same thing happens with your car. How many people die a year in their car? Yep. How many people accidentally leave a child in the back of a car?
I have to tell you what happened yesterday to me quick.
Oh my gosh. Yes,
because
I heard
you said that.
Yes,
well, I was turning left into my driveway, and there's no bypass lane. So, and it's one lane each way. We're on the highway where it's 55, but in our zone, it's 35. And people speed through there, and they'll blow past you on the shoulder when they're not supposed to, instead of just waiting for you to turn. It finally happened yesterday. A truck went to blow past me, and there was like I guess 12-year-old kid there, and he had to dive into the grass to not get hit. I am so thankful he was paying attention and able to miss getting hit by this truck. And then the truck driver had the nerve to lay on the horn. I almost backed out of my driveway and started rage following him, but I'm just glad that kid's okay.
No.
I was shaking.
Report it. Did they find who ran away? Did they find who it was? The trucker?
No, I'm trying to get this. I don't know if it's going to even help, but I want them to put up signs that say "Do not pass" all over in this zone because it's such an issue, and put patrols out to watch for it and ticket people. It's wild. And every year, several kids die that way, or pedestrians or dogs, or, because people just, they can't wait 5 seconds out of their drive for someone else to get home safely.
Yes, the most dangerous thing that we ever do is driving. And people talk about guns all the time, about the danger of guns, and they are dangerous. That's absolutely, they're a dangerous weapon. They're a weapon. They kill things.
Yeah, they're supposed to. Cars, no.
Cars are not supposed to kill things.
Yeah.
I actually taught defensive driving at one point. And
awesome.
I was a comedy defensive driving. And I always said, if you assume that everybody's either an idiot or out to kill you, if you just assume as soon as they get behind that wheel, they can be your best friend. Now they're an idiot or they're out to kill you. Choose which one they are. You can give them the grace and benefit of the doubt that they're actually an idiot, or they are going to try to kill you. Everybody in the road is an idiot, or they're going to try to kill you. Now, how do you respond to that? You respond to it by being mad? No, because then you just became an idiot, or you're out to kill somebody. You're the only sane person on that highway. How are you going to act? And so you say to yourself, I have to be the only sane person, and I have to be the only ethical person. I have to drive as if I don't want to go to jail, and at the same time, I want to stay alive. That's defensive driving, and you're actually out there thinking, who's going to try to do the thing that's going to kill me the fastest? And so you try to figure out, how do I evade? Well, if I've got a kid over here, how am I going to pull over? If I've got something over here, I've got an intersection coming up. I already know there's a car over there because intersections have cars. How am I going to go through here if I have a truck coming in? By thinking that way and thinking of it as a game in some ways, where you're going out there, you're trying to stay alive. You're trying to make sure that you get your other people home alive. It becomes a challenge, and it keeps your brain functioning really well. And it's just, we do so many dangerous things in this world. And to say that just the one thing that could save my life, you want me to get rid of it, which is that gun. And this is coming from me, like I said, as a 4'11" human being. I'm a shorty. I've been a teeny tiny person all my life. And so I have been backed into a stairwell without a weapon of any kind. And being able to do a little bit of self-defense, to be able to do evasive maneuvers. I walked backwards up a stairwell when I was 17 with a pair of high heels, with a man trying to come at me, telling me he was going to pull me out of there. And and it was actually in Washington, D.C. And knowing how to defend myself and backing up like that and taking care of myself, I'm very grateful to God that I was able to escape. But I really thought to myself, geez, I wished I had something that I could make this guy get off me. And it wasn't going to be me. It wasn't.
I picture you throwing your heels in his face and like running up the stairs backwards.
It's really hard because actually that maneuver to get if you're backing, that was actually I was doing it. He was backing me up or down the stairwell. You're trying to go up and you're having to put your foot up. So unless you can actually reach back and grab it and step on him, the high heel maneuver, you have to step into them to do it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tougher than people sometimes show when you're on a flat surface and they're trying to pull you towards them. Yes, the stiletto heel is a great weapon.
Well, and if he's close to you, and I mean, he could move faster than you if you're in heels, I'm sure. Like, that's terrifying. Terrifying.
Well, that's when you actually close gap and you come down and you have to hit hard. Like I said, you have to come in. That stiletto heel has to go in on an instep, on a little toe, somewhere like that. But if they're wearing steel-toed boots or something, you're going to be out of luck. So once you do that maneuver, you have to be aware of what you're doing. And this is another thing that came up is that when people are playing video games and I love video games, you already know that. So, but when they're playing video games or they haven't really experienced the world and they think, oh, I can take somebody just by doing this move, you have to have real world experience and you have to have self-awareness. So if you are looking at someone and you look down and you see he's got on boots, if he's got on work clothes, the chances are those boots have steel toes. You're not going to be able to do that maneuver effectively. How else can you do it? You look up at the knee and you say, okay, can I take out his knees? If I'm going up the stairs, can I take out knees? Unfortunately for me at that time, because I was so much littler than this person, even at that point, me coming towards him would just push me right into his arms. And there was always a door he was going up. And so I had to get to a door first before he did. And I was able to back out of the door, but it was about me actually doing blocking maneuvers. I was doing what my father taught me on our combat, which actually, although he was doing something similar to Krav Maga, and I'd also done judo and I've done taekwondo, but it was closer to 4 gates and it was actually blocks. And so you do the blocks where you actually put your forearms up and you keep pulling out. It's like water. The movements are like water. They're very smooth and flowing. And so I was able to evade this guy. Even every time he would try to grab me, I was able to slip through, break the hold, go back, break the hold again.
That's so badass.
and do it while I was walking upstairs in high heels. But because I was so focused on the block, and this is where I didn't have the experience, but I was focused on block, so I didn't do the attack, which would have been, yes, to try to rock back and to hit him on the knee with a high heel and see if I could hit him. And so, and that was me that had a lack of aggression. And that's one of my biggest problems is I am not an aggressive person. And I say that probably my family's probably laughing right now because I can literally turn into the most evil. I can turn into evil mom real quick. Like I will drop F-bombs and things like that. Nobody believes me. I can be such a terrible, I feel bad. I'm like, I'm so sorry, Jesus, please forgive me. And I'm like, but I can turn into evil mom. And so but I'm not aggressive. I have never been able to hit somebody and make it work. I've never been, even if I'm sparring, if I think it's funny, I can play. As soon as it gets real, I just melt. I am no good at all. So me knowing my personal fight style is super important because I've learned through experience the hard way that I am not aggressive enough. And when I finally do get aggressive enough, I have that cataplexy. I just go limp. And it's not very helpful. So a gun it is. Yay.
Yeah. I mean, years ago, I was with my best friend and we were at a loft party for my agency. So we were dressed, really, really nice and like mini dresses and heels and stuff like that, all done up. And so we were leaving in the middle of Minneapolis and we had a group of guys. It was 4 or 5. I can't remember, but it was a group of guys following us, like catcalling us from a little bit of a distance. We're like, just ignore them, and they were being disgusting, really vulgar, really whatever. So we got to our parking garage and we ran into the elevator and we were hitting closed door and it wouldn't work. And they got into the elevator with us. So I lost my mind on these guys. I started screaming at them and confronting them. And they ended up like apologizing, like profusely. Luckily, because they could have easily gotten angry back at me. You know what I mean? But they were terrified.
It's that actually we have that's that cornered cat thing. It's where you puff up, you make yourself look bigger. And sometimes the person that doesn't realize that they're doing it the wrong way, that doesn't realize maybe they're a little drunk and they're just not thinking. There's a cat call, the one where they go, I never had a problem with that. Somebody thinking I look good. I'm mid at best. My best day I've ever had, I was a 7, maybe, you know, like it. And so if somebody thought I was cute, I was okay with that part. There's the ones where they're literally calling you bad names and screaming at you. Hey, you know,
it gets dark.
Yeah.
It gets
Yeah.
dark.
No, they were being disgusting.
Yeah. Then when you go to disgusting, there's nothing sexy about that. That's not trying to get somebody to look at you or say you look cute. That's just being evil.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and a lot of times that is aggressive and it can be really scary. And I've been in both situations. And so, you know, as like I said, if somebody's doing that to me, it's because they're gonna be drunk. I mean, that's just all there is to it at that point. So, like, so I already know there's a problem. And so, it's a little bit. It can be really threatening. In fact, somebody was talking about this the other day on Twitter about, and he mentioned, you know, is it really that, you know, women get with us and we're just there? Do they know that we can actually hurt them? You know, because men are some of the most dangerous creatures. I would still rather be with a dude because I can probably. When I am with a man and I know him, I'm not afraid of him most of the time. Now, that's where you get hurt because the guy you know can end up becoming crazy if you're not careful, and you want to make sure that everybody's, you know, sober and in their right minds. But yes, men are dangerous, and we do know it. And if we're trusting you enough that we're actually in the room and we're having a great time and we let our guard down, it's because we trust you. But in the back of my mind, I know when I get out at a gas station or something, I know that somebody might try to kill me. I know that somebody might think I'm a target. It's just one of those things. It's sort of like being a prey animal. If you're, you know, you see the deer grazing and they look up at you and their little tail goes up, but they do it, that you feel like, oh, they trust me. I'm so happy. They're still a prey animal. They still are on guard. And I am always aware that there is a chance that somebody can hurt me. But if I trust you enough as a man to be with you, it's because I think you're a good person. And yes, I know you could possibly, I know that that's out there, but I still want to be around men. I'm not going to take my chance with a bear. I got news for you. I've been around bears too. Well, and bears,
same.
I can't be with them.
Men,
with a bear, you know,
men can be manipulated.
Yes, men can be manipulated.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think people realize how heavy a bear's paw is. I took my senior photos with a bear, and the guy got the bear to just place one hand on my shoulder like this, and I swear to God, I had to hold it up. Because it was just like casually placing one paw on my shoulder, and I was like, "Oh, holy shit!" Dude. And the claws just digging in, and it's not even trying. I'm like, "Oh my God, dude! This is a small bear too." Compared, oh my God. I'm like, "Geez, dude." It was sobering.
Yeah, and bears are some of my favorite animals, and we live in an area. Actually, we're having bears are coming back. We have mountain lions on my backside of my property that actually killed one of my 800-pound ponies. Took its head off. But I mean, like, dude, and like we found the paw print and everything. This wasn't guessing at it. It was like, I wonder if there's a mountain lion. I took the paw print down. We actually took the photos and everything with the back sun slant, and I took it down to my vet, and I said, found Cloudy. His head was over here. His body's over there. There was a 30-foot tree. It was actually an ash tree, and I took it into my vet, and he goes, "Yeah, that's a mountain lion." It was like right there. The paw print. It was as big like this, and I'm like, these are living on my property. We've seen them. They're cougar concolor. There they are going across the street. And so I have these animals out there. And I have bears. And we have some gators on the backside of the property. It's literally like living in Texas 1880. Nice. When I say we have the wildlands, it's real. I'm ready from experience on a lot of this. And the wild hogs. A wild hog will kill you faster than anything else. It will literally gut you from point A to point B.
Smarter than a dog, too. Smarter than a dog, too, I hear. Yeah.
Extremely smart. Yeah. They know what to do, and they're running in herds. I've seen a herd of 200 go down my ravine.
For real, yeah.
Ponds are. And so with all of these dangers, I know that I can talk to a human being. There's a chance that maybe I can talk to them and we can de-escalate the situation, or I can let them know that this is not how I want things to go. And if I can't, then I can use my gun. Now, the same thing, chances are with animals that we have to be respectful of their territory, and I love bears. I love watching bears from a distance, and I'm respectful of their territory. I actually have my ranch set up to where I have the riparian areas where my horses and my equines go. I've got some long ears. I got my little donkeys, and I've got Ranger, my horse, and they go on the backside of the property. They're big boys and girls, and even then, I'm still kind of concerned about the fact that this cougar one time showed up and did this thing. But that riparian area is where my wild stuff lives. there's where I live, and that's up with a, it's cleared around my house. It's my homestead. And we have a mutual agreement. My animals know, they know where my dogs have been. And if my wild animals are coming up into my yard and they are coming towards my house where my goats and my chickens and my people are, then I know that they're taking a risk that they know they shouldn't take either.
And they are like confident or something. They believe something.
There was a road I used to drive on, and they had this donkey, and it was the funniest thing ever because it wasn't a very traveled road, but it was still tar and everything. Every time it would be up by the road, and it'd see a car, and it'd like bumble down home, like, God damn it, I'm gonna get caught. It was so funny. And then one day it wasn't there, and I'm like, they finally locked it up. They got sick of its shit. But it was just the funniest thing. Because I'm like, what? There's just like a donkey by the road, like, ooh, better get home.
My last. Oh, sorry. You go.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say my last thought on the whole guns as an equalizer thing is when I and it ties in to the whole what I brought up about kids even in the crossbows. When I was a kid, I lived in North Minneapolis.
Oh, that's why they give like the Iraqi 8-year-olds and stuff AKs and stuff. But
I mean,
anyway.
It gets darker than that too. You can anyway. So when I was a kid, I lived in North Minneapolis, and I was shown how to use the family shotgun and shown where it was in the ammo. And if anybody came, I was told what to do. Essentially, if anybody broke in when the parents were at work. Why would you show a kid that if it's not relevant? You know what I mean? You could have a full-grown dude break in, and the kid knows how to use a shotgun. It's even odds. Or
yeah, we used to be able to stay home alone when we were 12.
Yeah, no, it's like, geez, I've gotten so protective, and of course, I'm living out here in the country, so I know pretty much everybody that comes by. And still, I'm really super protective of my kids, and I know that there is no safe way out. Now that you're a parent, either you're too protective or you're not protective enough. The one day you let your guard down, they do something, and you're like, oh my God, I was right, I shouldn't have done this thing. So there is no safe way out. You are going to make a mistake. Which mistake will you make that makes the least amount of damage? And once you know that it's a mistake, then you be human with your children. You tell them, I am sorry. I know that this might have affected you negatively. I'm trying to make the best choices I can. I'm a human being. I will make mistakes. I will disappoint you, but I always love you, and let's love each other. Well, the same thing applies to guns in the house, training with children with firearms. One of the things my father always taught me, and once again, he was a veteran with PTSD. So he always said, announce yourself when you come in. Immediately, he said, announce yourself. I'm home. It's me. You'll yell out who you are. Don't just tap on the door and poke your head in. It's, I'm here. It's me. I'm coming in. And usually we have a special knock. We always have a special knock that we use, and that's just for us, so we know it's us. And I actually have had strangers come to my door and just knock on it. They give that police knock, bam, bam, bam. And you're like, geez, who is it? It starts out just like a neighbor from down the street.
It's nobody I know. Yeah.
It really does help. It does help to have those things. And to not ever just jump, because we had firearms, we didn't ever just hide in the closet and jump out at our parents. If everybody was at home, it was different. If I was a little bitty, it was like, but as far as doing that where you wait till they come home and then you surprise them, no, because you're going to get hurt. And so we had a lot of rules. We actually did. And that was one of them, is that you always announced yourself when you came in the door, and you never just jumped out to scare somebody when they were coming home from somewhere else. However, on the other hand, we did a lot of stuff to scare each other. We just made sure that we did it where we weren't going to get shot,
my dad almost got shot by his grandma because he lived with them when he was like 17, I want to say, but he had a key, and I think he had just moved out, but he still had a key. So he went back there to steal some of my grandpa's cigarettes.
Oh my gosh.
And he met my grandma, and she had a shotgun, and she's like, so what happened was she flipped the light on. So that was my dad. She's like, I almost shot you before I turned the light on. And so my dad still does not like guns.
Yeah.
That is the reason why, like I said, we try to, when you're dealing with guns, it's not a casual relationship. It is a working relationship. This is like a member of the family. You introduce it. You say, this is this gun. This is what it's here for. These are the rules we have. And if
He
we're
didn't
going to
eat all.
yeah,
I ate a hot dog before the stream and just burped in my face, you guys.
Oh my gosh.
It was a sandwich. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. I don't know what it was, but it's
It was a sandwich.
smell like hot dog.
Sorry, that's the ham and turkey.
Oh, I haven't had dinner yet. Like I ate like some nuts and berries. I'm not gonna starve, you can tell. It's like
Ooh,
it's
speaking of hot dog ingredients, we're gonna do a late night grill after this. We got chicken.
Really?
We got chicken in the fridge. But yeah, sorry.
Really? Okay, how are you making it? What are you making it with?
Barbecue. I got my grill. We're gonna do some charcoal. I like to get the embers really nice and hot. And then before I grill the actual meat, I sprinkle a bunch of mesquite chips on there. Some like wood chips. Yeah, and it gets like the fresh flames and yeah.
We're finally using the sauce I got from Albany.
Yeah, Albany sauce.
Which one did you get?
I want to say it's like Parmesan honey.
Yeah,
Let me go
it might
check
be
real
Parmesan.
quick. I'll be right back.
We'll check.
Let me
We've been saving it because we could only get one little jar, and we've been waiting for something good. Maybe we'll
It's
just
so good.
we'll have that.
Albany Rose. She makes the best hot sauce. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I got her ghost pepper one. I ate that in like 2 days. I literally put it on everything afterwards. I was so hungry for it. It had this literally slow heat, and it came in. And
Buttered garlic barbecue.
Wait,
which is it?
What is it?
Buttered garlic barbecue.
Oh my gosh.
So buttered
Oh,
garlic
Buttered
barbecue.
garlic.
Show the label. Show the label on the air. Do you have it?
One sec.
Yeah, we gotta shout it out.
We're gonna show Albany's hot sauce so that way she can
The
barbecue
Bone
sauce
Lady.
Sell it.
Right?
Yeah.
Is it the Bone Lady or the Skull Lady? The Bone
Yes.
Lady.
Yeah, she's the Bone Lady. She
Yeah.
Royce's wife. She's the Bone Lady. She does all the cool stuff, and she makes hot sauce, and it's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I love this stuff so much.
I'm excited to try it. I might. Should I just like write an article about it or something? Just, like,
Yes, do it. Look at this stuff. I did a video on it. Oh my god.
I'll just turn it. Hold on, let me full screen. I'll just turn it into like a full-on snobby like food review.
Look at
I'll be like,
so
it has nodes of garlic and butter.
We'll do a link below so they can know where to go get it, or a person to contact, so they may also share the joy of the barbecue sauce.
Yes. So while we have you here, and I'm looking up Albany's barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell people about your universe, Watcher of the Damned?
Oh, well, we'll start off with barbecue. For one of the things of this, first of all, we have this universe where if you've ever seen this Georgia Guidestone, there was actually a set of monuments that were created. They were put in Georgia for a long time, about 30 years, 40 years. And they stood for all that time, and they were destroyed last year. What was on it? It's a mystery. But it did say that there were people that wanted everyone to drop down to the population of 500,000. I think it was 500 million people world over instead of the billions that we have. That humanity should be culled down to 500 million.
Eugenicists?
Yeah, this is not like New Genesis. And so this is actually the Georgia Guidestones, and that people should learn to live in harmony with the earth, and that they should all only be this many people on the earth, and that they would all learn to live with the land, and everybody would share everything. It really sounded great. So I was like, what if the Georgia Guidestones became real and a corporation foobarred it so bad that nobody could actually live on the planet, that they messed it up so terribly? And that's the basis for Watcher of the Damned.
So,
of course, go ahead.
Are you aware that they took those down?
Yes, they absolutely. They blew them up.
They blew them up.
They blew them up. Somebody put a bomb on it, blew it up, and then swept it all away just magically overnight. Nobody ever knew.
That doesn't help any of the conspiracies. I just have to say that does not help any of the conspiracies.
It doesn't stop any of it at all.
No.
And so I wrote the book based on that universe. What would happen if the Georgia Guidestones became real? What would happen if they, like New Genesis, that they just drew us all down to almost nothing? What if they got their way? And I say they, I mean the corporate heads that think this is such a great idea, the people that keep saying that people like us shouldn't live on this earth, that we're ruining it for them for some reason, and that they want us to die off so they can take over. So I wrote this world of a corporate takeover of the world where they decided there were too many people on the earth, and they killed a bunch of them off, and they messed it up in the process, infecting the whole world, killing off almost all the women, and leaving basically man world behind. But it's an oppressed man world. It's not cool man world like you think of it as being, because no matter what, power always asserts itself.
Yeah.
And when those in power manage to get with their way, they don't apologize for it when they mess it up. They just keep on controlling and keep on hanging on to power. And that's the system. And so when we say fight the system, join the revolution, read Watcher of the Damned, we're talking about that system that seeks to oppress the little man constantly, thinking that somehow we are their enemy and making us their cannon fodder for whatever it is they choose to make us. And so that is the basis for the universe of Watcher of the Damned. It's this beautiful world where the earth is coming back, and much like Life After Humans.
I love that documentary. I love it.
Yes. In Fallout, the earth is so devastated. And it's one of the reasons why I love Fallout New Vegas, because you have the Honest Hearts campaign, the DLC. I love that because it's the earth is beautiful in that one. You're in Zion National Park and it's all cool. Yeah. But when you in Watcher of the Damned, it is a beautiful universe like that. Still, there are the cities and things are all around, and they're coming back with the trees and everything. But there are also things that happen when you have humans missing, and then as infrastructure starts to die. Well, there are actually environmental degradations that take place because humans are not there to control what's happening with oil tankers and mines and places where things had been kept corralled and kept away from the earth, and now you've got leaking tanks and all kinds of terrible things are happening. So you say to yourself, well, how does this world look? What is it? What's around? You might be in a very beautiful place, and then you realize the water is poisoned because you had a mine here, and because the reclamation of the miners was interrupted by death, now you just have arsenic leaking into the soil from these holding ponds. What happens when those holding ponds go? What happens when the tailing piles start to fall into the reservoirs? And so you have all of these things that can happen. You have what does the world look like when it's abandoned? What happens to Houston when the kudzu takes over? What happens to Dallas when all the mesquite starts to move in downtown? And so I wrote this world, and I used real world maps. I have I actually used Google Earth to lay out a route, and we're actually going to be making a geocaching trail when we get finished with the entire series. We're going to make a geocaching trail for readers to go back, and they can actually trace the locations in Watcher of the Damned, and if they find it, they'll get a digital surprise and everything like that. But this is the world that they live in, a world that's bereft of femininity, because those who decide that they're wanting to control the population of the earth, where do they always seem to head? They head straight for women, and they just want to make sure that we can't replicate, and they like to disrupt our hormones. Well, they just managed to kill off all these women, and so you're living in that world. What happens to people then? Is there a remnant population of women somewhere? And that's the basis of Watcher of the Damned, is them finding each other again, male and female, finally finding each other again, coming back together again, working out the differences because they've been made into enemies. And they have to overcome that. And the Watcher is a prisoner chained at the gate of a prison camp. But nobody knows it's a prison. They've just been told this is the way people live now, and this is how it's going to be because the world is too dangerous. There are too many horrible monsters out there. There's chupacabras, and there's feathered serpents, and there are all these mutated beasts that have come back. The folklore and the fauna of Texas, which Texas is already dangerous enough as it is. You put a couple of chupacabras or a couple of quetzalcoatlus in there, you're going to be sad. Let Bigfoot come back. Let's see what happens. And so you have all of these creatures, but the one thing that's missing are women. So the Watcher is going to find somebody out there, and she's a throwback. She definitely is, and there's more of her kind out there. They have to learn how to get along and get together, and they are going to decide they don't want to be prisoners anymore, and they are going to start a revolution. And I say they because they work together. And he's a big, brawny, burly man. He also has some physical limitations. She is a little bitty gal, but she also has some skills. So they have to work together.
I think there's something quite timeless about women being the coveted source of like the MacGuffin, essentially, right? Because then you can have the MacGuffin also be the main character as like a woman, right? It also harkens back to a lot of classic stories. Like I remember when I was a kid, I played this game. I think it's called think it's called Battle Tanks. It was just some generic tank game.
Oh, I know Battle Tanks.
Yeah. So the whole idea is it's a tank game. So it's just you drive a tank the whole time. But when you invade your enemy's base, the thing that you're going after is a little princess or like a little woman, because like in that universe, that is there was a virus that like killed like 99% of specifically females. And I believe that game is even hearkening to things like Mad Max and A Boy and His Dog, right?
Yes. And it's a common trope. The question is, what happens if the trope actually wasn't true? What if everything they told you was a lie? And so we have a remnant population, more than just one person. There are things out there. One of the things I did in researching, and because this story is partly born out of the torment that I saw on 4chan, specifically in going to Poll and other places. And when you're on 4chan, you never let anybody know you're a woman, and that's fine. If they find out, there's rules. But and this was back when 4chan wasn't quite as crazy. And it was still crazy, but it wasn't this crazy. And it was that despair of talking about how do we even get, there's a gulf and it's widening. Women and men are being separated and being torn apart from each other. And they don't even understand each other now. There's this war between the sexes, and we really don't talk about it because we want to say that there's no difference, that there's nothing different about us at all. But we're very different in some ways. And when I was writing these characters, I wanted that gap to be there. I didn't want them to immediately understand each other. I wanted them to be representative of some ideals that we're seeing being played out right now. And so how do we bridge that gap? How do we, when we find out that maybe this was engineered, that maybe people really wanted us to hate each other, maybe they wanted us fighting with each other, maybe they wanted us to abandon each other, and men were supposed to go off and be just on their own because the women were just absolutely terrorizing them. And then we have women saying men are dangerous and horrible and we don't want to be around them anymore, and they constantly stalk us. And so what if this was created? What if this situation was created because people didn't want us to be together? Because they wanted to destroy everything we had that was good and everything that we loved about each other? How do you overcome that when society itself and the system itself doesn't want you together?
I really like that because it adds like a 1984 twist to like a Mad Max Fallout type universe. And
yes, if we have realized that
I love it.
We need each other and we actually want each other. And not everybody's going to do that. We do have people of alternate flavors in my world, because when you live in a world that's same sex, you're going to have same sex arrangements. You're going to have people that are like, I don't want to live alone, and this is who we have, and this is how we get along, and they're out there. But now the heterosexual dynamic is utterly placed to the side. There is no outlet for it, and damned unless you can find somebody to share it with. And so we have this where the heterosexuality becomes this. That's the MacGuffin, to be able to find each other in a world that doesn't want you to find each other. The MacGuffin actually is the couple, that divine couple, male and female, dancing together and creating this entity of the woman and the man together. That is the MacGuffin. It's not just the woman. It's that couple that makes the difference. And of course,
because like you said, the conspiracy is that it's not they're not actually like an endangered species, right? Because like that's
they're endangered to a certain extent. Anytime somebody thinks they're so dangerous that they've got to try to keep you from replicating, you're in danger. It's like Ralphie on the back of is I'm in danger, aren't I? Like,
I'm in danger.
I'm in danger. So it's pretty much right there. And so I wanted that feeling, and just listening to guys talk about the despair that they felt, and wanting families, wanting a future with someone, and feeling like you can't even talk to someone now. That if you do, you might be put in jail because you said the wrong thing, or that somebody will say you were stalking them. Or there's no rules. There's no way to work it out. So how do we do this?
I assume you definitely have the scene in there where you have the big scary but also cool dude meeting the dainty defenseless scared female for the first time, and there's this like I'm scared on both ends, because he knows he's terrifying her, but she's also just terrified because of all dudes in this world or whatever.
It actually he's and this is a little bit of a spoiler, when they first meet, he's chained to a tree and he's been fighting. She has the gun, so she itty bitty person. She's actually standing a little too close. And,
That's all right.
And there's been a big battle, and he's he's having to ask her, please help me. I want out. And of course, he's going to become dangerous as soon as that chain comes off, because men are dangerous. There's a reason there's a chain on this guy. It's because he was too dangerous. Men should be dangerous. They're supposed to be dangerous. You guys are a machine. Have you looked at your hands? Have you just ever looked at your hands? And guys, okay, so here's my possible. Have you ever watched a dude open up? Okay, Moon, has he ever opened a jar for you?
He just asked me the other day to get a jar open for him.
Oh, dude, for real.
And I got it open.
Yeah, did I?
I actually have a technique.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember.
You made me open the jar. You're like, do you have a secret? And I banged it on the floor a couple times upside down and opened it.
I remember that. Yeah, that's right.
I have a technique. I'm actually a left-handed jar opener, and actually put it on there, and I'll push down. And I won't actually put my hand over it this way. I put my palm on it, and I press it down, and I do it.
Nice.
He has open jars for me too, though. So I'll be honest about that.
The grip strength is one of the biggest differences. Actually, it is grip strength. Really, you can have the twiggiest dude. He will have grip strength like you don't know. I don't know what it is. There's something about the way they're made. But yeah, so there are differences between the two. And she knows he's dangerous. Men are supposed to be dangerous. You're supposed to be. You're an animal. You have to have a defense. Even if I threw a dude out there, and we have defenses too. Women do have defenses. But men are supposed to be dangerous. It's time for them to stop apologizing for being the animal that they are. They should be the controlled animal that they are, though. They should be able to be a master of themselves.
Oh my God. That's why chivalry is so important, right? Like chivalry stories are actually very important, because like they instill the idea of values and principles, because animals like men, this is coming from a man, we need something, like we need to feel like we have purpose, because it's just like part of our biology. Like we have evolved to be defenders, protectors, and killing machines when need be. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason, like, I don't know, there's just, go on, you know what I'm saying? There's a reason for all this.
Yeah, there is a reason for all of it, and we have to be ourselves. We have to say who it is. When I say that I need to know my fighting style, I also need to know my style as a human being. What am I? What kind of person am I? I have a tendency to think that I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I think that I'm bigger and stronger than I actually am. Me learning who I am and how to fight in the proper way was very important. It also means that I have to accept that I really do like having kids. I love having children. I love having babies. I'm tired of people making me feel bad because I love babies. And I thought it was the most important job I ever had. And I've had a lot of jobs. I've been a firefighter. I'm a storm spotter for my county. I've been an EMT. I've been a teacher. I went to college. The most important job I ever had was my child. I'm not going to apologize for saying that, because that human being looked to me and said, I love you. And I was the source of life, and I was the source of everything that happened to this little human being. I'm not ashamed to say that was the most important job I will ever have.
Women are stargates.
I thought you were going to say stormtrooper. I don't know why.
If I was a stormtrooper, that would have been really cool, and I would have been like, oh,
I was like, tell me more.
I heard somebody say that women are stargates one time, and it's stuck with me ever since. Like, think about it. Gates that like bring souls into the world. You literally are like a soul gate.
There's a fine line right now between not wanting children and straight up hating them. I actually deleted someone that I've known since school a few years back. It was before I even met Andy, and I didn't even want kids at the time. And she was talking about how she hates kids, and I was like, okay, everything you're just saying right now about how much you hate kids, replace it with Black people and tell me if you're not racist.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, they can't help. You were young once. They can't help the age they are. Are you serious? And
it's okay to say I'm having a tough time with it, or I don't understand, or I don't like the way this person is acting.
Right.
But you don't say I hate this group of people.
Yeah, they just think kids are annoying and they hate them, and it's wild. I had a friend who was very much anti-kids, always posting stuff like that. And when I was pregnant, she was sending me stuff about how much she hated kids and memes and stuff all the time. And I'm like, that's the rudest thing ever.
Well, and they don't realize how it affects you. And here's the thing that people don't realize about me, and I say this when I talk about how much I love having babies. I also in a family that we deal intimately with infertility and pregnancy loss. And I have people that I love very dearly. They're in my family that cannot have children at all. In fact, I have several that could not have children. So we recognize that miracle of it. At the same time, if you are a person who doesn't have children and your life may not revolve around that, we also know how to live that way. But when we say, I am who I am the apex bud of this family, I am the flower of this branch, and that I may never have children, but I have a full and active life, and I do what I want to do, and I have this wonderful way of living. And we had to make our peace with that, because some of us really love babies, and some of us have had 5 miscarriages. I've had 3 miscarriages, and I had 2 children living. I have 3 that passed. It's a very tough thing when you hear people just talk about children as if they're to be thrown away, or that they aren't worth having, or that they're horrible. It's also hard when you can't have a child, or when you're desperately long for one, and somebody goes, oh, well, you're one of those people, you don't want a child, or you're barren. I've heard people say the opposite too.
We have 1 of 5.
Yeah. And you made it, girl. Good job. Good job. And it's hard to talk about. And in fact, it is part of Watcher the Damned, because my main character, female character, lives in a world where everyone else is fertile but her. She has a hard time. She doesn't have a hard time conceiving. She has a very hard time keeping her babies. And I wrote that from experience, because I wanted people to know that pain. I wanted them to understand that there are so many of us out there who have experienced the loss of a child, who experienced losses.
Nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it. We don't talk about how broken we feel. And you look over and somebody's holding a child and your heart just breaks. And then you're going through your life as a 40 or a 50-year-old woman, and you haven't had those children, and people just assume it's because you hated children or you didn't want them. And no, I wanted these. Why did people just throw them away when I could have had this? And it changes your heart, and you mustn't let the bitterness come in, but instead you become an embracer of who we are as human beings. That there are some of us that do live our lives as that apex of a family.
I think it's so wild, and not to interrupt you, I'm sorry. I just have to say this before I forget. In our world right now, we have so many more people that are like support sex workers, and they're so like supportive of people being, having a high body count and being sex workers and being strippers and porn and all of that. But then there's, they're going to knock women for wanting to be a stay-at-home mom or wanting to be a parent. Like, if you find purpose in raising a human being to add another wonderful human to the planet, that's the most important job you can do, not sucking some guy off for a few bucks. I'm sorry, but
the other thing is to understand when if I say I want a baby, you get, or I want a baby and I can't have one, to mock that person relentlessly, because they're now you're in that middle ground where not only are you, you're one of those people that doesn't have children, but now you have people that mock you for wanting one. That pain and that there is a longing that is very deep, and it really cuts to the bone. And how we deal with it as women who wanted a child and can't have one, how we deal with that in our art, in our music, in our songs, how we deal with that in our creativity, by going out and creating other things, by going out and creating those worlds and those places, is important, because it gives us that outlet. But when you are told that you can't even want a child, that if you're a woman that's 40 and you haven't had one, that you're stupid because you want a baby, you're crying because you couldn't have a child, you're crying because you think of another person's children and you just wished you had this in your life. That is one of the highest cruelties ever, because to lose a child or to never have had one and to long for what you wanted is just as much of an important thing as it is to say that you wished you could have gone on a trip or something. People will support you saying that you wished you could have gone to college. They'll be all over that one.
Yeah.
I've been to college, and I've also wanted a child that I've lost. Tell me that I shouldn't be wanting this human that could have been in my life is devastating. And it's really
the
devastating.
Debt's okay.
I have to have
the
it.
College debt's okay for sure.
Yeah, the college is cool. And so when we start to see, we're living in a very tumultuous world. There's higher rates of miscarriage and infertility than we've ever had before. People are dealing with it in such a way that, and we're not talking about it. We're telling women that they should be happy that they don't have children. They should want them, and we're not dealing with the pain that goes with this. And of the people that wanted it but won't have it in their lives, and how do we move on if we're in that place? And to be able to embrace creativity, not just of art and music and of literature, but also of human beings. to say that a human is also a creation. It all goes together. And when you separate any part of the creative process from ourselves, we hurt. We feel pain. If you told me that I could not write, that I couldn't sit down and write a story tomorrow, I would have pain. If you told me that I couldn't draw a picture, and in fact, as sad looking as it might be, because I'm not the best illustrator, I'm just me, I'm just who I am, but I would still feel pain. If I couldn't sing, and I'm going through this now as a person that has some health issues, that I can't sing the way I used to. I play piano. I actually play like a Jerry Lee Lewis thing, and I would sing. And now it's really hard for me because I'm 61 years old, y'all, and your body starts to change. You're like, wow, I can't keep the pace I had. You feel pain about it. All of these pains are real. We need to be the creative human being we are. And just because I have a child doesn't mean that I am not going to be creative. That's the biggest lie that was ever told. I had my children and I still created. I was still an artist. I was still who I was supposed to be. I still went to school. I still became a firefighter. I still became an EMT. Nothing ever stopped me from going and doing those things. My children did not stop me.
Mm-hmm.
I had my children in my life, and my life is richer because of my children, not because I wasn't choosing, if I have this child, I won't be able to be myself. I just went ahead and did it anyway. I did it. It was harder. There were things that were tougher about it. I managed and I did it. And yes, it's a hard road, but you can do it. And I did it as a single mother. So anybody that's out there saying, you don't have children, you'll never be what you're supposed to be, they are lying to you. You have a child, go ahead, be yourself, carry them with you, take them on this journey, because this is the great journey of life. And if you find yourself in that place where the loss has come and there are no children or there are no people in your life to share a child with, then be that creative flower that you were meant to be. You are the rose, and the works of your hands will fill the earth. We are creative. We are human beings, and we need to flower as women, whether it's through our children, through our art, music, our literature, or any other way that we do it. We need to be able to embrace that, and we need to stop giving people grief for wanting to be the ultimate creator. We need to stop making people feel guilty for that and mocking them because maybe they can't. It's time for us to treat each other with dignity and respect and say, this is a part of our lives. One of the most painful things that ever happened to me, actually was part of a science fiction contest. I'd submitted my book and it was reviewed, and I won't say who it was or the contest, but they said that I had said that they were missing from the earth the fertile, life-giving creatures once known as women. They said that the word fertile was icky. This was yikes, because I described women as fertile. This was coming from a man telling a woman who wrote a book about loss and infertility, that talking about fertility was yucky, that it was icky, that we don't do that. He wouldn't even finish the book. He wouldn't even read after that, because I described women as fertile. This is the world we're living in. We're being denied who we are as we are, our pain and our suffering and the this magic of our cycle, who we are as human beings, to have that happen. Have you ever thought about what happens when you have your cycle happen, when you're running for your life in the wildlands? You know what? We have it in the book, because Rose does have to go through it. She actually has to go through it, and she has to deal with it in front of a bunch of dudes that she doesn't know. And she actually is coming from a culture where it's considered to be unclean. And so she has to deal with this, and it goes right to the heart of what all of us have been through. That first time you stand up and oh my gosh, something bad has happened, and my clothes are ruined, and everybody's going to laugh at me at school. No, we don't talk about any of this. We don't talk about our loss and who we are as human beings. We don't talk about this. Why? Why has it become yucky to talk about women as being women? I'm not saying somebody else can't be who they are. I'm just talking about me, my experience, my life.
Yeah. Who are they to tell you what gives you purpose?
Yeah.
Well, that's it. For me to describe myself is somehow a yikes. It's a bad thing that you would literally say, I yeeted this book from my campaign because I wouldn't allow a woman to say she was part of a group.
Well, and he can't objectively, without bias, read your story. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, I got so mad today and upset because I saw a TikTok where this woman, I won't even call her a woman, this evil thing was mad at the father of her children's sister. So she has her own kids, and it's like me being mad at Andy's sister and dumping her baby's ashes out her apartment freaking window.
Yeah.
And she recorded it, and someone's like, she's going to get arrested and charged with all this because someone else did that. And I was like, I tell you what, if anyone ever touched Olin's ashes, it would be the last thing they ever did.
One of the biggest threads of the story, okay, so let me say first, the story is actually male-centric. In fact, it was so male-centric that the person who said that me describing women as fertile was icky probably thought I was a man, because my voice in my stories is fairly masculine. And he didn't finish the story, but he gave this review about it being this big boom story about men doing, masculine things and driving. And I was like, I guess I finally made it. They thought I was so it's okay to swear as long as they don't know who you really are. Yeah. So that was great. But so we have all of these, shooting guns and there's fights and there's fist fights and there's wrestling, and there's barbecues. Well,
wrestling.
Wrestling. It is wrestling. But we have this strong thread of Rose dealing with that agony. And one of the things is that her baby that was lost to her, she can't find that baby. She's looking for the body. She's looking for a place to find it. She knows it was taken from her. And she wants to find the baby. And when we have those things happen to us after our miscarriage, a lot of people just act like, well, it was nothing. They don't talk about how it affects a man, how it affects the father. To see this happen, to watch your wife go through this over and over again, and to want to be excited and say, oh my God, this time we're pregnant, but I'm going to lose again. Yep. Be so afraid. And Rose is seeking constantly throughout the book. She leaves gifts when she finds the graves of children, or she leaves something, and she still mourns because that child is still our child. Mm-hmm. This is a person that came into my life. They lived inside of me. I felt this human being move, and I loved them. And we have that bond, and it escapes time and place. There is another place, another adventure where there's a human being that I gave life to that exists on the other side of eternity. And when we finally meet face to face, I will realize the life that they had and the joy they've experienced. But that beginning, that love, even if it's so brief, that little moment means something. And when I buried my children, I buried my babies, I buried them under the rose bushes in the front yard, because there's no place to put a miscarried child. If you get past a certain point, maybe you can get your baby back and they will let you have a little funeral if you're stillborn. But when you're just going through a miscarriage, everybody just keeps on going and life keeps on moving on. And does anybody know I'm here anymore? If somebody say something, I lost my child. Oh, well, you weren't that far along. You were only 12 weeks. You were only 8 weeks.
Doesn't matter.
It was a fetus. Don't worry about it.
It was just, this is not a real human.
Fetus means little human.
This
Funny enough.
This was my child. This is somebody I longed for, that I wanted them to be in my life, even if it was just a moment in time. And so Rose goes through this whole thing of seeking the child she lost. And she's trying to find that balance between the peace of trying to make a future without this person in her life, and still remembering. And that's that constant give and take of life as it is right in front of us, and the life that could have been. Yeah. And it's okay to mourn the life that could have been and still embrace the life that's in front of us. Yeah. I said, even if it means that our arms are empty here, our hearts can become full of the creation here. And we have to let ourselves be that person, the mourning, the loss, the love, and to realize that, no, the world may not recognize that part of our lives. They don't see the hidden child. We call them our butterfly children. They're the ones who flew away, that the cocoon opened and they just flew away. And every time I see a butterfly now, we always say that's a reminder of our children. And it actually shows up in Watch of the Damned, of the flights of the children as the souls, as they go upward. And the Watcher actually, as a man, he deals with Rose's own agony. How is he talk to her? How does he try to speak to her when he doesn't know what to say? The moment when anything you say might be the wrong thing, and all he can do is just be there. And at the same time, he has his own feelings. He has his own emotions about this incredible burden that can happen to a man as well. It is not just women who go through this. Anyone who's
I was gonna say, we all have masculine and feminine traits too.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the things that was really surprising to me as an author, I've always seen myself, when I was little, I thought of myself as John Wayne, because I really liked John Wayne. And so I was a little bitty girl, I had my hair up in bows. I still thought of myself inwardly, I am John Wayne. And so I had this weird dichotomy. And so when I was an author, and to realize that people reading my book didn't realize, because I put Snow, because I thought Rebecca Snow sounded like a romance author. And so I was like, it's the best romance author name in the world. So I was going to do Rebecca. I'm sorry, my hair came off. Sorry about that. And so I was going to do Rebecca. So I did R.H. Snow. And I didn't realize that my voice was so masculine in action, and the characters are so masculine. And it's that inner voice that I have, that person that I see inside myself, or the 10-foot tall guy that can go out and, wrestle and do things, is showing up in my author's voice. And so it was really weird to see that sort of like that animus come to life, and to say, oh, that's what I might have been like if I'd been a dude. And I was like, oh, I'm just me, and I just know how to handle guns. And so I'm a 61-year-old woman, but I still know these things. And I was raised in a household where girls were allowed to play with. We were allowed to play with toy guns. We were allowed to play with little toy trucks. My
same cars.
I know it. Yeah, they did that on purpose. They wanted us to know we could do anything, and that's how I ended up being a firefighter and an EMT. And some people think that is a masculine trait, but to me, it's the joy of being who I am and of experience. I am fully feminine. I'm fully a woman. I'm also fully a firefighter and EMT, and I know my limitations. I'm not going to pick up the 275-pound guy and move him real quick. On the other hand, I've got a great crew of people, and when something happens, they put me on the pump, and I go after it, and I'm the one that throws all the throttles, and they're the ones at the end of the hose spraying. So there's always something we can do, and us being ourselves fully feminine, fully masculine, being us, human beings, is the heart of Watcher of the Damned. It's how we learn to love ourselves in spite of our limitations, and because of who we are, and how we can actually save our world and be free to be the human beings that we are, in spite of a system that would put us down.
Yeah.
I was just saying we have to play your video, but people always have told me, like, I always have manly jobs besides the modeling. Like, I like to paint my nails and once in a while wear makeup, and I like to do all the feminine things too. But I've worked on cars, at car places, on cars, and I've done, machine operator, and all sorts of different things that people think as masculine. But it's like, like I had to do a blower motor fan on the car, and like Andy was just watching me and learning, and so it's like we have, like, he's not the kind of person that's gonna be like emasculated if I'm working on the car or something. And we both have things, like, he does things that I don't do, and so like that's part of like having a team too, and why relationships, it's like I feel like we're traditional in a way, but also like now I'm in the worker, like I go out to work and he works from home and stays with the baby, and that's totally fine. He doesn't feel a certain way about that. But people have really been weird to me. I mean, I've had so many people like, he needs to get a better job. And I'm like, well, what would we rather do? Have him also go to work and then pay for more than he makes for daycare? No, I'm not paying to put my child with a stranger instead of my husband. That's not happening.
Yeah. No, and not only that, but he has a job. And you need to say, no, he has a job. He has a job and he loves it. And
people just don't get it.
They don't get it. And actually, my husband is, he's always been, he's the better cook than me. He cooks every time. Not every time, but a lot of the time. I make stuff like popcorn, and I make really cool sandwiches. Yay me.
Nice. We both cook too, so it's great.
Yeah.
And he actually is, I would say he actually does. They do the station duty. We call it station duty. So he goes and they do the whole thing. My husband and son both, they clean the house. That's what they do. And there is not this thing about, oh, you have to have a role in order for you to be masculine, or a role in order for you to be feminine. There are things that we love that we naturally gravitate towards. In the end, we're going to act as we are as human beings. But when you immediately say, well, the only way I can identify you is if you take this role, that you have to do it the way I said, that becomes like a gender Nazi, where you're literally saying you have to act this way. And when you act this way, that makes you that person. I'm a woman, even though I'm fighting fires. I'm a woman. I'm still a woman. I was a beauty person. I was out there beating on that fire with a flapper. That's what I did, and that was me. I was doing CPR. I'm still me, and I was never doubted it. I still have my sparkle nail polish on while I'd be hitting, trying to bring somebody back. And so like I said, we have to embrace ourselves not as the way other people see us, but as who we are as human beings, and who we are on the inside, even behind a layer of dirt or sweat or a layer of physical malformations that may hide the true us from other people, we are still who we are as human beings inside. And we need to be able to share that with the world and not be afraid that somebody's going to go, oh, well, you're doing this thing, so you're no longer a woman, or you're doing this thing, so you're no longer a man. You cried, so you're no longer masculine, or you're not doing what you were supposed to do, so I'm declaring you something else. And that's wrong. We are ourselves, and we need to embrace ourselves.
Oh, I forgot I loaded asphalt trucks too for 6 years.
Yeah.
That was like my long one. I forgot all about that. But yeah, it's like the firefighter thing is so cool because it's because we don't see many women that do it. But it's so weird because I feel like so many more would if they weren't kind of like just they had it drilled into their head that that's what men do, and
we have a tendency to, I will say this much, we have a tendency to stratify the way, if we're allowed to do what we want to do, then yes, I would say that you just allow people to choose what they like. And if they want to be at home and they want to stay with their children and they want to be able to go out and work as a nurse, or they want to be able to doctor. Some people love desk jobs. Some people love being outdoors. It actually kind of stratifies between the sexes. And we've just seen this over and over again around the world. There are certain stratifications that take place because of the physical realities of if you have kids, that somebody's going to be there, or somebody's going to feed them. Or you have the physical reality of a dude's going to be able to move that rock better. He's the one that's doing it. But we have about 10% of our county that is actually female firefighters. I'm one of them, and I actually helped found my fire department. I got the training I needed. I didn't take anybody else's job. I didn't ask for anybody to lower their standards for me. I founded the fire department, and I immediately found good, strong guys that would go out and would tear down stuff for me. And I said, hey, we need to get this done because we have things burning to the ground out where I am. I'd like to go ahead and have some extra people out here working. So my job is a talent finder. So I learned what I did well. I did it as well as I could. When I was no longer able to do that job, I stopped. When I could no longer run fast enough to catch that truck, and I knew the day it happened, and it happens to all firefighters, but it happened to me a little faster. When they had to stop to help me, I said, I can't allow them to get hurt someday on the scene. I cannot do this anymore. And so I went ahead and turned in my little boots, and I said, here it is. I kept my helmet because that's mine.
Oh, your little boots.
I never could find a pair of firefighter boots because I wear children's size 3. And so
no way.
That's
do you
awesome.
Really?
Yes, I do.
Dainty. I love it.
I'm chubby, but I'm like this little short. I literally look like I'm a hobbit. I am actually a real hobbit. So
every bit of how small you are, you definitely make up for it in personality. So I love it.
I appreciate that. That's so sweet of you to do that. Thank you.
So we're approaching the hour-and-a-half mark.
Yeah, we won't keep you. We'll wrap it up with your video.
You're already over. So I just want to say, while I have you here, that my novel deals with fertility also. My protagonist is a pregnant woman. And I had Katie and my mom help me with any lady questions.
That is so awesome.
I do need to do one more pass on it quick before I release it this year, but I thought you'd find that interesting. If I ever did a story that dealt a little bit more with male and female dynamic, I would probably do it in this other age of my world, because basically she is in a society where humans are endangered at this point in time, essentially, and just kind of stuck in their city.
Oh my God.
And the world is very hostile towards them. So essentially what happens in that scenario, I would imagine, is you get like essentially just business owners that become wealthy. So you get like guilds, and reproduction and stuff like that is very tightly controlled, I would imagine. So essentially she's just going through society's normal things, and gets pregnant, and decides that, like, it kind of like activates everything, and she's just like, I got to get out of here. You know what I mean? I got to get out of this. And
I felt that actually with I've had that happen with some jobs, so I'm not going to say that.
So she hops on a boat, and the story starts from there, essentially. Yeah. And it goes on this whole crazy fantasy adventure. But if I ever did like a male and female, that's more like what you were saying. Like, when the gloves are down, you know what you're capable of when it involves your kids. That's kind of what the story's about. Like, what would you become a monster for your kids? And the answer is like, yeah, any decent parent would do anything to save their kids. So if I ever did a male and female dynamic, it would be in what I call as the Age of Queens. I imagine it Yeah, I imagine this because everybody has like the age of heroes, the age of kings, the king's age, the lord's age, or whatever, and everything. I want the age of queens,
That's so
where
cool.
yeah, where people, it's kind of like the inverse of the situation, where it wasn't like guilds and like women, like everything's tightly controlled like that. It's kind of the reverse, where women were almost worshipped. They become the queens, and the male and female dynamic is like a queen and her knight, her protective bodyguard. So that's where you get knights in my world, actual like knights, like real world. They were a necessity to protect the ladies, who are the queens, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
and I love that, because that happens in Watch for the Damned. That Rose has been fed this sort of a pseudo-feminist mindset, because even though she's exploited, she's being told that this is really cool and it's okay because you're on your own, you can be a sex worker. And she's like, no, that's what the good girls do. All the good girls do that in her world. They have to do that. That shows you're a good person. You give yourself away want you, as long as you have approval. And so she's being taught, and the Watcher meets her, and he's not that kind of guy. He is very much he's not that kind of person, and he is her bodyguard, and she has to realize that there's some things that she thinks she can't do that she can't, and he actually has to realize that he needs her, because he has a very specific reason that he needs her, and it's in the book. I won't give it out as a spoiler, but he needs her physically. He needs her to help him, because if she is not there, he has a very distinct disadvantage without her skills and her knowledge and her ability to help him. And as we find out more about the characters, we realize they both need each other. And we have gifts and strengths, and all of us have this in our lives. And when we realize that the human beings that are placed in our lives to be with us are done, that each one of them has a gift that if we only knew, we could actually use that to enrich ourselves as well, if they are willing to share it with us. And I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to realize we need each other. I think that it's going to make the world a better place when we finally start saying that again. It's okay to need each other.
I agree. That's a beautiful place to leave it off. I'll tell you what you can take off and get to the other stream that you got scheduled, and I'm gonna go ahead and play a special treat for the chat and everybody watching. It's your trailer, right? Your new trailer.
And I just want to tell chat, first of all, thank you so much. You're here. You mean the world to me. I know my hair bob's falling off. Just if you see that, just don't pay attention to it. I did my hair right beforehand. It's really soft right now, so it's like just going everywhere. It's like so much hair. And so I want to tell you, I love you, and thank you so much for watching this with us. Thank you for being a part of this show, and thank you for putting up with all of us going into some pretty deep subjects tonight.
Yeah, it's great.
That's the best conversation, though, to be honest. It's real.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for everything, and just keep praying for everybody. Keep praying for each other, and go forth and live your life on Legendary, guys. It's gonna be great.
We love you so much. Thank you for finally being. We needed a female guest, and you're the perfect one. So thank you.
Great
I'm very glad to finally get to actually talk to you face to face too.
Yeah. You're here every week. Let's not forget you're actually a female guest too, but it's your streams.
Yeah. I always forget about.
But now there's two of us, and there's only one of Andy. Let's go get him. I love you.
Finally, estrogen wins.
Oh no!
Thank you
I'm
so
outnumbered.
I love you guys. Y'all be good. Go ahead and play it.
We love you too.
Okay. I'll just pull it up here, and I'll even full screen it here.
There's a new dawn lighting my horizon. There's a new road calling out to me. There's a phoenix on fire inside me rising. The damned will be uprising, and we will be free.
Yeah. It's back.